So Peter, I mean, we've been talking about these players in energy like Middle East and Venezuela, and how events in these countries were actually affecting oil prices. But now we have this new player, this is Brazil in Latin America, and they just announced a huge discovery of oil. How this is going to affect oil prices and supply eventually in the future?
Well, these are some of the hugest oil finds that exist in the world right now. And they're going to give Brazil the latitude to do things that they've never been able to do before.
Mm-hmm. I understand. And how can you explain to me how you see Brazil politics? Because in order for them to do this discovery, they've been investing a lot in research, in investigations, and of course they've been developing a very interesting energy politics. What can you tell me about that?
Well, Brazil is a unique case. And while other countries like Venezuela, Ecuador, Peru, to an extent, found oil and then spent the money, and now they're running out of oil,
Yes.
Brazil decided to go for energy independence, didn't think it had any oil at all, went a completely different route, got itself energy independent, it declared energy independence about 2 years ago, and then, wow, they find these two fields. So it was like the frosting on the cake. And it makes Brazil a unique example, and one that really other countries should follow.
I understand. And even in the process of trying to be energy independent, they were also trying to be oil independent in a way, because they have like a strong politics on bioenergy, there's ethanol, but basically not at that time when they started, it wasn't because of global warming and all this, but more because they didn't want to depend on oil, because they didn't know they had all this oil.
Right. Well, they decided to use something they had in abundance, which was sugarcane. And so they really, in a lot of ways, pioneered the use of ethanol. Here in Connecticut, where I am, and in New York, the neighboring state, we have to have 10% ethanol in our gasoline, and ours comes from corn. But Brazil was really the first country to use ethanol in any significant quantity.
I understand. So you just said that Brazil has a unique energy politics system. Do we here in the United States have something to learn about them?
I think we have a tremendous amount to learn from Brazil, because they decided energy independence is going to be a priority. For 30 years, they kept at it, and it was a policy that went on regardless of who was in power. In the United States, we have the Democrats and the Republicans who don't feel that either's program makes sense for them. So when the Republicans are in power, it's all about drilling and increasing the supply. When the Democrats are in power, it has in the past always been about increasing mileage standards and cutting down demand. And really, we need both. In addition to that, we need a policy that will survive the changes in parties. And to my mind, the very best of these policies is the one that Boone Pickens has come out with, the Pickens Plan.
Yes. Can you explain a bit about this?
Well, the Pickens Plan is talking about using the natural gas that is currently being used to fire electrical generation used in utilities. He wants to move that into the transportation sector, where we will use natural gas to power our cars. And of course, we have as much natural gas in the United States as Saudi Arabia has oil. And to replace the natural gas that was being used to generate electricity, he wants to put up he wants to develop wind power. And of course, we have, the Great Plains, where there's this area where we could put up windmills, and the wind just goes along pretty much all the way out to the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. And it's one of the best conceived and most timely plans, and it's something that we definitely should be thinking in terms of implementing. There is a piece of legislation, HR 1835, that would help increase the ability of cars to use natural gas. And right now it's in committee, but hopefully that will come to a vote. It has sponsors from both sides of both sides of the aisle, Democrats and Republicans. And I think one of the best things we as Americans could do would be to follow Brazil's example and to come up with a bipartisan plan, in this case the Pickens plan, which is the best of the bunch,
Yes.
and implement that regardless of which party is in power. It would be something that our grandchildren would thank us for.
That would be great, and do you see that happening in the short term? I mean, with all
Well,
these crises and everything, I mean,
There's a lot of hope that this bill could be passed because it has something along the line of 75 or 76 sponsors, both Democrats and Republicans. So I personally am very hopeful that we can get certainly elements of the Pickens plan in place.
yeah, because being energy independent for the United States could like make us save a lot of money for sure in every sense.
Well, I'll give you an example. For every penny rise in gasoline, it costs the American consumer $4 million per penny per day. So we've just seen from Christmas, we've seen an increase of $1.25 a gallon in gasoline. That's $500 million, $500 million a day that is coming out of American consumers' pockets here at the end of June that was not coming out of our pockets at the end of December. So a huge difference. That's $500 million that isn't going to food, clothes, movies, industry. And we wonder why we're in recession. The oil part of it is something that's been overlooked.
And this was Flavia Maceto for FMX Connects. I hope to see you very soon.